pieces. 2041. Well, that's strange. 2000. Let's go. See this. Oh shit, I'm bugging. Hold on, I forgot. I'm bugging. Forgot I had to make a move. Just defense. That's what you call it. What the hell? Where's the response? Where's the right? Okay, so D4. So we'll compound the D4, respond. That's like so probably go. There are a couple options we can respond to opposites, right? Yeah, let's keep it theoretical, let's keep it simple. Just defend the knight. Just go into Monday. Okay, so this has become the good bishop. Good bishop on the dark squares. Wow, my arrow sucks. This bishop has become a very bad bishop, so now question my hands. I mean, I could develop, so I'll develop that knight. Wait. I mean, I could strike right here, right? It takes, capture the center. I mean, why not? It sounds reasonable. Okay, you're gonna just take. I mean, oh, my pawn's blocked in. Oh, I made a mistake. Well, must have made some sort of error there. I mean, nothing I can really do right now. I can just, close it like I have clearly. Okay. I mean, I could undermine the pawn chain right now. Yeah, we're gonna have to undermine this pawn chain, I'm not gonna lie. I gotta undermine it because this is pretty annoying. There's only one line of pieces out too, so I have opportunities. Undermine the pawn chain. Here to get a trade off in these pawns and my bishop can capture it. Okay, you're gonna give me a chance to undermine the pawn chain, I appreciate it. Now I'm just gonna simply continue because he has one isolated pawn on the edge of the board. I'm gonna offer up another try to get another pawn trade going. Okay, so go checkmate. I'm gonna just immediately block. Also offer a bishop trade. Okay. What could he do? He's actually gonna take. Okay, solid. Okay, so now knight takes back. Knight recaptures. Oh, so basically my main plan in the opening was just to undermine this pawn chain on the queen side. So my pawn structure is way more sound than my opponent's. This isolated island pawn is going to be really annoying, so this tells me in the long term this rook is not going to be in the game, and my rook has an extremely open, semi-open file, and this pawn is not overextended, but just misplaced. Right, so he boots me, but that doesn't really matter because I'm calling his bluff right here. I'm saying, hey, I got a free check, you're going to have to do something. Now he offers this. Now I can trade bishops and do the same exact thing that he does. But now we both lost this bishop pair. However, my knight can get on this outpost, and this pawn may be passed, but my queen has constantly a watchful eye over this pawn. So I'm gonna just put my knight on this outpost, and then we're just gonna go on to the next game. The plan I'm going to say is put pressure on this pawn and struggle just to do a good job. I have a good center, so I should be better. The question is, how am I going to capitalize this? Connect the rook, stack up on the a file maybe? Yeah, I'm going to castle stack up on the A file. Seems like the best plan. Go for an Alekhine gun maybe with this knight square. That's certainly my idea. If I do it wrong. Also, this square is pretty long, so I gotta be careful. Maybe I gotta reroute my knight. But not yet. Okay, yeah, he takes out the outpost. Not really an outpost, but I mean, I got two options. I can go here and attack a knight, or I can go here. I want to go here because I want to stack up the A file. So let's go here, kick out the knight, guard everything. It has a good outpost, but this opening on the A file is going to be my key. I need to win it. Oh wait, but he defends his pawn. I missed that. I'm not thinking clearly. At least I defend my knight too. I wasn't thinking too clearly. I know I'm better because I have two pawns in the center. He has isolated pawn to backwards pawn. Two knights are on good outposts, but these knights can't be harassed. Now I gotta just wait. Now I'm gonna boot out the knight now, no questions. I need to get one of these knights out this outpost. You can go here, force my rook to move. I could. How am I gonna reply? Am I gonna guard this pawn? If I go knight or pawn back, I appreciate it. He's gonna get a tempo. That's what I know. Now I can probably see I gotta win this stack. I have two options. I'm gonna capture the pawn because I wanna open up these files on the side. That's the plan. I'm gonna continue to open up on the queen side, shove my rooks down here, trade rooks. Big awesome. But it was. Yeah, and I'm threatening this too. I mean, I'm probably go for long-term pressure. Eventually, we'll succumb to it. I mean, the question is, do I have time? This square looks free now. I mean, am I bugging? Yeah, I'm gonna just take the free square. I appreciate it. You just gave me a free square. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with it yet, but I guess I continue to put pressure. My king has some love too. Okay, so now he attacks my queen. I'm gonna just simply go to continue to stack on the A file, go for that long-term plan. Continue to stack. And I'm gonna probably have to liquidate the position. I just gotta figure out when to liquidate, because if I'm able to get up a minor piece, or if he blunders this knight, I'm Gucci. But he's most likely not. He's 2000 rated. There's no way. Okay, very smart. Now, now I can use this. I can use that plan. I can boot out the knight even more. Okay, yes, now I understand. Okay, now I'm simply gonna, now I can take this hanging pawn, or I can play for a long-term strategy. You know what? Honestly, yeah, let's go for a long-term strategy. Let's continue to maintain some amount of pressure, because the knight cannot defend this. Only the queen and the rook can, which will help me continue to get access to this file. But I'm not. I need to find out appropriately what I'm gonna trade. Yeah, let's carry this pawn. Let's use this pawn. Let's use the rook. Let's use the e pawn against the rook, so it just sits there defending it. And now I have a pawn in the 6th rank, so it's passed. Okay. I mean, I'm not gonna allow him to damage my pawn chain, so I'm gonna boot out the knight again. He may get an outpost. My queen is watchful of this outpost. Okay, very nice. Now, okay, let me calculate. I gotta calculate. Rook takes, queen takes, queen takes. Rook gets access to file, so I believe this is the most appropriate time to take now. Okay, hold on. So rook takes, queen takes, queen takes, queen takes, she takes. Rook gets access to a2, access to this file, push pawn. Seems like the only logical option. There's no way, right? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get the big dogs. I know better with them. Yep, just liquidate the position. Continue to liquidate. You better have my word. Bang with the big dogs. Now it's simply going to be a rook against knight endgame, but I have such an amazing pawn chain. Wow. Okay, she's going to not disallow the queen trade, okay? He's going to just give me a free check. Okay, I'm just going to slam into your position. And then I'm going to just continue to push the pawn. You don't really got a choice, man. You got to get some up. I mean, I could take, promote, yeah, I'm probably going to. Oh, man. I'm going to just, yeah, I see it here. Yeah, that just becomes unstoppable. Yep, just play patient, play sharp. Why? Because ultimately he cannot stop this forced promotion now. So called off his bluffs, called off his defense. Okay, she plays some danger levels. Now I can trade off. Do the same exact issue because rook and queen takes. Rook goes to back rank. Okay, yep, called his bluff. And that's good game. Do I really want to play 2 hours though? I don't want to play chess for 2 hours. Let's see how well. Yeah, I don't think I did too bad. Okay, so let's go back to review. Let's go move. My opponent plays down the queen's pawn opening. I respond with a queen's pawn with a queen pawn reply. My opponent immediately goes knight to f3, trying to take out the dark squares. Immediately go knight to freaking f6, controlling the opposite square. So knight is fighting for these squares. I'm fighting for also light squares too. Opponent goes pawn to c3. I immediately go pawn to c5, simply offering a gambit to get a flying pawn in the center or develop my knight and push the bishop. There were a couple ideas that I had, but I didn't want to immediately do it. He takes, and I immediately go and I say, I'd rather take this long term in the center with a more passive setup to get more to have an advantage. So I'm sort of, not an advantage, but a long-term benefit of having complete domination of the light squares on the center, which guards all of these light squares. And eventually, when my knight gets here, it will guard both dark squares, which will be perfect for me because I have full grip of the center. So, pawn to b4, simply a pretty sound move. Using these like a vertical Sicilian structure to guard all these squares on the dark squares. I'm going to go pawn to a5, simply saying, hey, I need to undermine this pawn chain. Not this pawn chain, but this pawn structure. So, ignores it. I take, he takes, he did pawn to e3. I'm going to go pawn to b6. The same exact process of saying, hey, I need to destroy this pawn structure so I can develop a very long-term benefit from these open B and A files. So, I block the bishop, offering a trade. Bishop takes, knight takes b7, knight b d7, pawn to c6. I immediately take with checks and an in-between tempo move. He thought it was a forceful move by moving his pawn. However, he had such a lack of development where it just gave me a free intermediate move. So I played the tactic of intermazzo. Bishop c6, trade off the bishop pair. Now it's just knight and pawns, and This pawn structure is so much more beneficial for the knights, the pawn at F, E, and D pawns, because the knights can always outpost on these pawns in the long term and make a lot of pressure and space control. That's why I decided to give away the bishop pair in this game. I mean, you go knight to c5, starting to take advantage of that post. So as you've seen before, the queen keeping a watchful eye. Knight to b3. Knight to b3, simply challenging my knight. I simply castle, ignoring the threat, saying, hey, if you want to take my knight, you can. However, I will capture with the b pawn. And even though I have no pawn, it will be a 0 pawn majority. However, this queen and rook will have such dominance over this file that this pawn does not compensate for this activity with the major pieces. Knight to e5. I don't get why that's a bad move. However, I just simply ignore the threat and boot it out. Wheels pawn f4, defending. I'm going to go knight to fe4. fe4 to simply counter outpost the outpost. So, opponent castles. Pawn to f6, booting out the knight. Knight boots back to d3. Queen takes c6, which is just hanging and blundering a pawn. Hanging a pawn. I take the pawn, say, hey, you want to give me free single dollar bill? I can't say no to it. Knight takes knight. Pawn takes knight. Same exact concept. Taking a dominating grip of the center with this beautiful pawn chain and threatening to boot out this knight whenever. Queen to d5. Rook to a3, simply noticing that there was a square where no one occupied it, so I'm going to take it for myself and have a dominance over this file. Knight moves off the white, giving me access to the third rank. Queen to a6, simply trying to build Alekhine's gun, or the triple legendary triple stack. The form which has turned to be the Alekhine's gun. I will probably give a history lesson on that later. Knight goes off for here, moving back to simply put pressure on my c-pawn. Now I use c4, finally the alright opportunity to strike and boot out the knight. Knight to b3, going back to the outpost. Rook to a8, giving white a slight advantage, but simply building such a long-term pressure on the a and b file. On both on the a file, now soon be the e file. Rook slides over. Now I calculate in my head. I want to liquidate its position and absolutely abuse this B and A files to get all my head major pieces, just dominating it. I go pawn to c3, putting her pawn in the third rank. It's making this validity of this pawn to up 4 now, and now my outpost defends, and the rook on a3 is conveniently placed there to guard this unpassed pawn. And then the opponent makes another error of just trying to undermine my pawn chain, which is a counter strike and boot out the knight. Pawn to e5. Knight to e6. I don't see any threat behind it, so I simply calculate and liquidate the position. Takes, check, slide over to the left, c2, queen moves over. I only have one move to win this position by forcing a promotion. Rook to b1, going rook to b8 to rook to b1. Do it. Rook here. I trade off the queens, and my opponent resigns. My opponent was going to take back. Hold on a second. Here. I was going to go here. And the queen was automatically pinned. So, would have most likely blundered mate and 1 due to all the certain amount of pressure. And rook to b1 checkmate. The saving move for my opponent for a inevitable forced mate would be to create Bluff with the king, such as this. And then it would just simply be a beatdown in the mate. And I'm lagging so much, so it would just be rooked. And then, okay, let me find this king. That was one legal move. This knight guards the escape square. The king can't really go anywhere. So here. It's just that Escobar on the 8th rank. And that's what, to go back into this game, is, what tips I can say is, you've seen the reason why I damaged my opponent's pawn structure and used the flank A and B pawns to absolutely create an opening on the A and B files for a long-term strategy, and using the Alekhine gun and the A file to win this game. As you can see, my opponent did relatively well and slowly lost his advantage due to simply allowing such a bad pawn structure that I just slowly took advantage of. Because at the end of the day, it matters about let's go and see how well I did. I'd probably say I get around 90 plus.